Hello and welcome to another episode of the Star Bros podcast. And we are back on video for those of you who are watching on YouTube. It's nice to see you.
See you?
Yes, it's
We
nice to
can't
be
see them.
seen.
It's nice to be there we go.
Hey,
I
and,
wish we
and
could see you, though.
in a moment, we're going to be talking about Pan Solo, who is a 6 foot tall sculpture of Han Solo in carbonite
We're getting right into it, wow.
made by a bakery out in California. And so I'd like to introduce my baby Doda to my Pandalorian, my
What
bro
is
host Ben
happening?
Skywalker.
What is happening right now? I am so lost, but I love it. Keep going. Do you have more of this up your sleeve?
That's all I
Yep,
got.
my bro Jose on
W-
Solo there. Now we got the intros out of the way.
We got it out of the way. Sorry.
You seem pretty giddy tonight. Is there a reason? What's going on, man?
No,
How have you been?
I'm doing well. I'm just excited about what's happening in these bakeries out in California where they're making Star Wars characters out of bread, which sounds delicious and fun. But I'm doing well. We've had another like wild bout of crazy weather, of just thunderstorms and torrential downpours and all that again. So it's
I
nice not
still would love to understand the psychology behind why when we ask how people are doing, their mind immediately goes to the weather.
because it's a safe thing to talk about.
It's
It's not
safe,
controversial.
everyone can relate to it, and at the end of the day, it does affect us in many ways, our moods and everything. So, like, let's
It does.
psychoanalyze ourselves for the next, I don't know, 90 minutes, let's say, and
Sure.
call that an episode.
Okay.
And that's when all of our listeners just tuned out. Never mind. Um, I'm glad you're weathering the storms that we faced. We've had
Yes.
such a busy week and a half.
Dude,
Such
we
a busy
really
week and a
have.
half.
We've been all over the place
All over.
geographically and also across the Star Wars content creator universe. Where have we been?
Well, geographically, we haven't been as that far. I mean, we've gone about 100 miles, plus or minus, give or take, right? But to New York Comic Con, we've been
Yes.
busy, and that was
Yes.
a blast. Thank you. I know you said that was it was an early birthday present to me, and it was definitely happy. So thank you. That was a
Y-
lot of fun.
You're very welcome.
We had a blast. I mean, we'll talk about the in detail here, probably in the news in a moment.
Let's do that.
But then we've also been on Shooting the Voodoo last night.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then we were on Father and Son podcast at
We were.
earlier, I guess earlier in the week, about a week ago now, and been talking about Comic-Con and everything. So we have just been busy. So yeah, everyone listening, make sure you go and check us out if you want to on Father Son podcast, Shooting the Buddha last night. We talked a lot about New York Comic-Con, talk a little bit about it again tonight. And then some Andor.
Mm-hmm.
Should be fun.
Down to the important stuff, the Andors. Yeah, and I think we're at the halfway point of the series, right? So
I know.
this is a good opportunity for us to stop and reflect on this most recent arc that we've
Yes.
experienced, and we'll dig into the arcs. But what do you say we get into our first segment?
That sounds like a good place to start. And that one is called News from Across the Galaxy. I was wondering. It's funnier now that I can see you do it. Like most of the time, I don't see you actually do it, and maybe from the corner of my eye sometimes. But like I'm looking at you
Here it
like
is.
head on, and
It's
it's great
straight
every
on. Yeah. So
time.
what do you got? What do you got?
Well, we got a few pieces of news. How about we start with the big one, the High Republic stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, we went to New York Comic Con. We had a blast. We were on there Saturday. And where should we start with that? The first thing we did was we went to the Disney publishing booth. We bought ourselves a copy of Path of Deceit,
Yep.
which is the first book that is now released in phase 2 of the High Republic.
Which is a young adult novel by Tessa Gratton and Justina Ireland. I was trying to remember, and phase 1 was the first book that they came out with. Literally the first book. Was that also a young adult novel?
No, I think that one was Light of the Jedi, right? The
Was Light
Charles
of the
Soule.
Jedi that was the first one that came out though?
I think so.
Okay.
I think.
Somebody fact check us. Drop it
There
in
were
the
so many that
comments.
came
Just
out though.
put in the comments Ben is incorrect, and
Yeah,
then we'll move on.
not a
But
real Star Wars fan. Just say it.
But yeah, so we got a copy of the book, and we got to not just get a copy of the book, we got to meet them and say hello and get their autographs. What a cool experience. And you I mean, you're gonna start getting stopped in the street and stuff. People are gonna
I
start to
know.
recognize you. You're not
I
gonna be able
know.
to run your errands like a normal person because you are on the newest episode of the High Republic show on StarWars.com, getting
Mhm.
interviewed by Kristen Baver. Super cool.
Super
Um,
cool.
and
I mean,
I'm
and then you're standing there right next to me like proud papa.
or like your security guard or something, or like your agent.
That's it, yeah. I was wishing that they would take, like, something from each of our clips or something, like, they took, like, a very small piece of it, but as I thought about us walking I had no idea what they were gonna ask us, so therefore, I didn't know what I was going to say.
Yeah,
So, they really I don't know if we gave them a ton to go off of, but they found something in there that we said that they liked, and they put it up for the world to see, and, it's gonna live in, infamy now. Is
and
that how it goes?
yeah, and you showed up really well, and you made a very nice comment about how lovely the authors were, and I'm sure they'll
Yes.
appreciate that when they watch it, and it's true. They were really nice, but that's how our day started, right? In terms of
Yeah.
Star Wars stuff, like we saw some cosplayers, which was really cool. We got to interact with them, which was lovely. Um, but our first kind of like we went there knowing we're going to have a bunch of High Republic interactions with some of the authors and other
Yeah.
fans and stuff. That's how the day started. Like we got to talk to the two authors of the newest book, and then we got to talk to Kristen Beaver from StarWars.com, and like we were just getting started.
Yeah.
And so uh, also, for anybody who has not seen some of the other stuff that we've been on talking about the High Republic, you get a grab bag when you get the Path of Deceit book. And there's a couple of fun things in that grab bag. One of them I have nearby me, which is this lovely Star Wars, the High Republic tumbler. Oh, there
Nice.
we go.
I gotta go
Um,
find mine. I think it's in the cupboard.
on the back, you've got the little bit of like the crawl description of what this new phase is going to be and what's important about it. But there's
Yep.
also a really nice pair of socks. Do you have your socks handy to show?
I do.
You were just
Everyone's
waiting for this
listening right
moment.
now. They're just like, "I gotta go check out the video now." I didn't know they were gonna do a show and tell.
Yeah. So
Um,
for if you don't have your video on, or if you're just listening to the audio, Ben is holding up the socks that we got. They're kind of like they're taller socks, and you've got all the different Jedi from the first phase of the High Republic holding up their lightsabers in a very kind of like for light and life type of motion. On the other side, there is like a little bit of
you're making me really do. Yes.
yeah, on the other, you've got the logos, and I think there's a little starlight beacon like on the heel or something
Oh, is
stitched in
there?
there. Yeah, I think or
Oh,
on the
no,
bottom
mine
of the
just says LXL.
on the bottom of the is that what it is?
Yeah, that's all that mine says.
Okay. Huh.
Well, apparently Alexa heard us.
Okay.
Um, sorry about that, listeners. Just one second. Let me tell it to be quiet.
No worries. But so yes, we got this grab bag of fun stuff just for, we purchased the book. We were happy to do it. And then they gave us whole like an armful, like armfuls of other stuff to go with it. And it's all fun Star Wars stuff. You got
Yeah.
a little light up like
What do you call
pin,
it? Like a pin? Yeah, it was
a
a
pin.
pin that I put on my lanyard and lit it up. And one of the authors, Lydia King, I think, who is new, this face of the High Republic author group,
Mhm.
uh, commented on it in the line when we were getting on. She was like, "That's a really cool pin," and I was like I got it from you guys.
Yeah, you should
um,
have one. What am I doing with one? Like,
exactly. Exactly. So it was really cool, all the stuff that they just gave us just for buying this book. I mean, and not just that, but it was one of the first. It was what was it? It was like first off the shelf. Like they weren't even in stores. It was like a few days early. You could buy them there at Comic Con.
yeah, you know who
So
got it? You know who got it was a guy who is a really nice dude on Twitter, Ion Cannon, EYE on Cannon, who I know a lot of people follow and just seems like a lovely guy. He got it because he went to a Barnes and Noble and it was misstocked. So it was like, put this book out on Tuesday, and they put it out like on Saturday before that. And so he was like,
nice.
I'll take that.
Don't mind
And
if I do.
I think that happened in a few different places. And so those are the people who got it first. But today's what?
Well,
October 17th that we're recording it. And I've seen that just now in some places in Australia, they're getting like imports of the book because
mm,
I think it's not out in the UK for a few more weeks and a few other places. And so people are literally paying to import copies of the book. Meanwhile, we are so spoiled, we literally just went and got it directly from the authors in New York City, living the high life, getting it autographed,
I see
being
what you
interviewed
did
on
there.
StarWars.com, feeling really lucky and spoiled in a lot of ways.
And then going to the panel where the rest of the authors were. I mean, it was a day full of other great activities. We went down to Artist Alley, and that's where Charles Soule had a booth, and so we met him and had a good chat with him. He remembered the BROAXIUM crew, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
As you some of you might remember, we had him on just recently for the Podathon, and so we were fresh on the top of his mind, and so he remembered us, which was really neat. But then we went to the actual High Republic panel after that,
Wait, you know what
where
I was reflecting on in Artist Alley? We saw Ario Anandito,
yeah,
and he
yeah,
was wearing a mask and a hat, and he sort of looked incognito. Like I think most people wouldn't recognize him, but
right.
we're
We did.
we're we're huge nerds, and so we did.
But
And
I think I literally went up to him and was like, "Are you Ario?" And
I
he
was
was,
just gonna say, you
yeah.
asked him, and he said yes, but he was probably like, "How did you know that? And are you here to hurt me?"
No, this is Comic Con. It's the one place where he's accepted that people know who he is. I hope.
True,
I
true.
hope. But you never
And he
know.
was so nice, and I was
Yes.
I was genuinely starstruck to meet him because if you're not familiar with Ario's work, maybe you are. Maybe you've read the Marvel run of Cavan Scott written High Republic books, and the phase 2 issue just came out, and the artwork is amazing. And we learned at this Comic Con that he studied architecture when he was at
Yeah.
university, which explains why he draws these beautiful cityscapes so perfectly. But
Yes.
just an amazingly talented guy. And so we bumped into him because remember he was sitting at some other artist's booth,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
we
he was.
recognized him there. Um, but yeah, and then
Uh
we went up to the panel.
Yes, the panel. So back to that. We went up to the panel and where all the authors of the High Republic were there. And they shared with us all the secrets that they've been hoarding for
Not just
months.
us. There was a lot of other people there.
It was just us. I mean, I felt like it
It
was they were personally speaking to me.
was 9
Uh,
authors, and then me and Ben sitting across the table from them. Go
yes.
on.
While someone was tweeting it out to the rest of the world, we got the presentation.
Mhm.
No, so we were able to sit there and listen to uh all the different, like I said, the different things that they've been hoarding for a while and trying to keep secret. We got all the secrets finally about phase 2. So we learned a little bit more about Kevmo, who is going to be in this Path of Deceit book that I haven't had the chance to read yet. We're gonna get there. But I love the way that he was described. He's a Padawan, um, and he's super excited about becoming a Jedi. Tessa Gratton, who's one of the authors for it, said that she wrote him as a just everything to kind of encompass everything that she loves about the Jedi in one character. So
Mm.
if there's anything to get you excited about reading it, to me, like that's the selling point. Like if you love the Jedi, hopefully you love this character just for all those reasons. So I'm looking forward to reading that. But we got all the other titles, we got all the other comics. There's so much out there. I don't know, Jan. Let's just say go to StarWars.com and check it all out. Like there's so much
There's
to cover.
there's a really nice rundown of here's all the titles that are forthcoming, and it's just a nice snapshot. And we wouldn't
But
do it justice if you're looking for the facts and the names and the dates and all that stuff. Go to StarWars.com.
but my question for you was, out of everything that was announced and shared, like was there anything that got you really excited that you were like, oh, I have to read that one, or I have to see that, or I can't wait for that?
Yeah, I mean, I got really excited about a lot of it, but really enjoyed seeing some of the upcoming artwork. Like at that point, we had not yet gotten the issue number 1 of Marvel's The High Republic Phase 2, which dropped
Yep.
this week.
Yep.
And so seeing some of the artwork from that and hearing a little bit about some of the story, the main part being that it takes place on Jeddah, which is a place that I've been really interested in ever since we first came across it. And um,
Yep.
just really geeked out on some of the stuff that you see in the background in Rogue One in terms of like the statues that you see falling over in the desert and things like that. Wondering, are we going to get more of that? Are we going to hear the background about some of these things that seem like they're maybe from a bygone era when you run into them in Rogue One and so on. So I was really kind of geeking out about that. And I think just generally I went into that with like an openness, like having gotten to know some of these authors, just being really excited to see what they're coming up with next.
Yeah.
So I think I'm really partial to the Kevin Scott books with Ario's artwork. Um,
I
but I'm
think that's
also
a
like,
good choice. But I would also say like the Kevin Scott book that's eventually going to come out too, Path of Vengeance,
yeah,
looked really good. I mean, just judging by the cover, I mean, it looked very dark, which
yes,
is something we're very used to from Kevin Scott now. And so I feel like it's going to be one that really works for, adult fans
yeah,
in Star Wars, kind of like fans of Andor right now.
yeah.
So that would be one that I think I'm looking forward to the most.
And the one book that I'm really excited about, and I can't remember the title of it, but it was with the guy who had the lightsaber and the pistol on the
Cataclysm.
cover. Cataclysm.
Yep.
When we were listening to the description of Cataclysm and some of the stuff about how, yeah, the main character in the cover of the book has a lightsaber, but he's not a Jedi, and we'll see another Jedi that has two of those lightsabers, and somehow he ends up with one of them.
Yeah.
I just all the teasers started to pull me in a little bit. And is that the one who has Yaddle in it? That has
I
Yaddle in it?
thought that yes, that is the one where Yaddle is gonna be in. So, yeah, very excited to hear
And
that.
how did she drop that news? Do you
She
recall?
it was so funny. Um, she goes, "There is a, famous character, a very beloved character whose name starts with Y," and she paused there for a minute, "and
And
it's
people
not
are like,
Yoda."
oh,
Yeah, at first everyone's like, "Yoda?" And then, like, "And it's not Yoda."
and
"Yaddle?"
some people nervously laughed in
Yes, they
like in that
did.
moment.
Yeah.
But Yaddle sounds awesome. Let's do this.
Let's do it. Yeah. So yeah, people are excited about that. And then I thought it was very touching too. Like Charles Soule teased when he was on Podathon with us. He teased that he's got a big piece of news to drop, and I had no idea what it'd be. But my mind never went to what he shared, which was that he is going to be co-authoring a book with his daughter Rosemary, and it is going Rosemary Soul, and it is going to be made for kids, set in the High Republic era. And what was the name of it? It
It's
was
called Yoda and the Younglings, which
Yoda
is
and the
also the
Younglings.
name of a piece of music by John Williams.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I never didn't think about that. Nice. Well, this
Yeah.
one will be in the High Republic era, not that era, and it'll have our favorite Buryaga in it.
Mm,
So that
my
one's gonna be
dude.
fun to look forward to.
Love that guy.
Um, yeah, so much that was announced, and then after we got the panel, we went down and met with, the panel came down and did autographs for a bunch of people and gave us a poster, and like everybody went through the line and signed it for us. So that was a really neat experience, and
Oh yeah.
really felt like you got to know all the authors a little bit, and they're just so personable, like down to
Lovely.
earth people.
Lovely.
So
I keep telling this story, but it was just a really nice moment. So we're coming up on Life Day, and
yeah,
I love Life Day. I don't necessarily ever need to rewatch the Star Wars Holiday Special again. Although we were in line with a nice dude named Mike who said he watches it every year. So hello, Mike, if you're listening or watching.
yeah,
Um, I don't know if I ever need to sit through it again, but I do love Life Day. I do love that we got that from the Holiday Special. And I have the George Mann Cabin Scott Life Day Treasury, which is a collection of short stories that are focused on Life Day and the spirit of Life Day and so on. Um, got George Mann to sign it. Cabin Scott wasn't there. And then George Mann clued us in and said, "Hey, if you want to find Cabin and also get his autograph, here's where you can go find him."
yep,
And we did. And so
yeah,
I was able to get both. And I just thought that he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to tell me where
no,
to find him. But he very kindly did. So thank you,
yes.
George Mann, because I'm sure you're listening.
He's a fan now. We've converted them. Yeah, I don't know how else to sum up. It was a great day, man. It was a ton of fun to see to experience all the
Great
scenes, to
day.
see all those authors, to see all the cosplayers. Again, we've kind of covered in a
And to
lot of
meet
different
really nice
places.
people who were just fellow fans and
Yeah,
part of the community. We met a lovely girl named Nikki, who is one of our listeners in New York City. We were able to give her some
yep,
stickers, and her friend Elaine. So hello, Nikki and Elaine. And the Star Wars Tia, we got to meet her. She
yep.
was very very sweet. and just
Mike, you
other.
mentioned Quinn, who was another guy we met, who
Yep.
was in line with us while we were wait for the autographs from Justina and Tessa. Yeah, I mean, we met some great people. Quinn was one of my favorites. Just he worked at Disney, and then at the very end, he was just like, here's a little bit of just Star Wars swag for you. Those little patches he gave us. So,
Yeah. Love it.
um, some super down to earth, nice people. It felt like you were with, um, you know, you were with your kind, which I know
We
a
were
lot of
with
people
our
say.
people. We were with our people. People who love Star Wars, like we do, and people who love new Star Wars, which is just
Yeah.
a really fun thing to be around. Had a really good energy, a really good vibe, and we made the most of it. And we had some awesome food, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So
You mean
the
the
thing.
pizza afterwards, or even while we were there, we had
Man,
that rice bowl.
yeah, man, yeah. So by the way, we walked 7 miles that day, so we
It's a
earned our
very
meals.
long day.
Um, but we had like the thing that they do at New York City Comic Con, if you've never been, is uh, they don't have a place where they can make enough food to feed the thousands of people who are running around all day long. So they invite a bunch of New York City food trucks to just park outside the building, and you can go outside and inevitably queue up with a bunch of Jokers and
Um,
Batmans and Poe Damerons and whoever else, and they had a ton of great food there. And we had some really good Korean rice bowls, and then we went and got pizza afterwards, um, and then fell asleep and sugar crashed on the train ride home, and it was just a heck of a day. And I was buzzing afterwards. I was texting you the next day saying
Yes.
like, "Can you believe what we just got to do? Like,
Yeah.
we got to go back next year. We gotta try to recreate the experience if we can."
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially if we got to get to the day that Lucasfilm was going to be presenting something, assuming that they'll be there for something again. So, that just made the experience even better. Like if it wasn't for all that Star Wars, I wonder what kind of day it would have been. It probably would have been just as good, right? But like all the
Would have
stuff
been
that
really fun.
really put it over the top was the High Republic stuff.
Yes.
So it's making me even more excited for Phase 2. Listeners, we hope you're excited for Phase 2 and enjoy it with us along the way. Gosh, we need to cover some of the stuff we learned from Phase 1 first. That would be good.
I, I
Um,
I think now's a good time to do a retrospective. Maybe after we get through the
Maybe
Andor
through the Andor
series.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be good. Let's move on to some other news because we got a lot to get
Yeah.
through. Let's talk a little bit about Tales of the Jedi.
Mm.
It is a animated series that'll be coming here in just a few weeks. I think what was it? October 26th is when we're getting it on Disney Plus. If I got my date right. Yep.
So we're getting that before Andor ends.
Before Andor ends, and I don't
Oh
know if
my
it's. I think it's going to
gosh.
just drop all at once, if I'm not mistaken. Like it's not gonna I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on that.
I don't know.
Um, but it's 6 episodes. Uh, the titles were released, as well as a few other pieces of information. The titles are Life and Death, Ominous,
Deep.
Justice, The
Mm.
Sith Lord. Now I think we know who that one's gonna be about. Uh, some guy named Dooku, is my guess. Practice Makes Perfect. I think that's an Ahsoka one. Coda and Choices. Um, you can't really tell much about them just by all those, like other than maybe one or two. But the important thing to know is that 5 of them were written by Dave Filoni, with the last one being written by
Ooh.
Elon Murray. I think I pronounced that right. It's got the little accent aigu over the e, so I tried to get that
Is
right.
that the one that goes upwards?
Upwards, yeah,
Aigu?
aigu, yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, don't worry, don't have to try to get that right, but,
You don't have to try to get that right.
no, my
Wow.
wife makes fun of me for the way I say my "use" all the time, like,
Well, how do you
I
say it?
say the word stupid. Kids, close your ears.
Stupid.
Stupid.
Stupid?
There you go. You
Wow.
noticed it.
Wow.
That's I picked that up from learning French. That's my bad.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, um Anyway, what were we saying? Tales of the Jedi. So those are the names of
Mm-hmm.
them, mostly written by Dave Filoni. Um, and a lot of them were directed by Saul Ruiz. But then the other thing that was really interesting that everyone's reacting to is the length of some of them.
Yeah.
The shortest length is about 10 minutes, and the longest is 17 with a 14, 13, 14, 15 kind of in between there. So very short, shorter than a typical Clone Wars episode. So, but in all, it's like 80 minutes runtime of these 60 different, or these 6 different animated shorts. I feel like that's a lot, especially for some of the stories we're getting that are so like from the past and diving deep into like Dooku's history. Like I'm gonna be grateful for it, but there were definitely some mixed takes online about that one.
Yeah, and we don't really know the format of the storytelling yet. And it,
Right.
it it could work really well. Like the thing that I go back to is like what types of stories do we tell that quickly? And I think it's like one lesson type parables or um like a fable almost,
Yeah.
where it is just a bite-sized lesson that you take away from the action of the story, and there's a bit of wisdom in it that is transferable to other stuff, but they're going to package it up with that Star Wars feeling in some way.
Yeah.
And you could do that in 10 minutes, I
Yeah.
feel like. Um, but who knows? We'll see. I'm very open to it. And somebody on Twitter today made a really good point, which is got a lot of long format stuff these days. It's not the worst thing to get something you can actually sit down and watch
That's
in
so
one sitting.
true. That's very true. And like just different formats. Some people really like I mean, we were talking with uh Keith and Kerwin the other day, right? And Keith was like,
Our dear friends.
You should do YouTube shorts, right? And we're like, that's a great idea. Like
That's a great
people
idea.
want their media really short in some cases. Like 10 minutes is long in that term if you're thinking that way, but like keep in mind this is also trying to get I think a different demographic too, younger is my guess, to stay interested in Star Wars. So like
It's just gonna be TikTok dance videos. It's gonna be like Ahsoka doing TikTok dances and whatever.
no, please no. That's called cosplay. We get that already.
We got it. We're good.
So anyway, something to look forward to. I'm just glad it's one of those things where I kind of like when they don't announce that they're doing this and then like announce it. Where did we get this? Like D23 or
Yeah, it's just a few weeks ago.
Celebration? Like it was
It
just
might
months
it,
ago.
it might have been Celebration. I don't know.
Either way,
But
it was just months ago that we heard we were even getting this, and here we
yeah.
are, and it's like 2 weeks away.
Yep.
I kinda like that they're doing that. Just with Andor, it felt like we've been waiting forever.
And
2
it
years plus.
yeah, it totally did. And it's nice to just be pleasantly surprised now and then.
Yes,
So
exactly.
so we'll be talking about that in a few weeks.
We will be. How about what else do we got? Any other news?
I think we hit the big stuff because I opened up
You
with
opened up with
Pan
the
Solo.
yes.
I I showed the ace in my hand right there and then, but maybe real quick on that. The bakery is called One House Bakery. It's in Benicia, California, and apparently every year or so it's a mother-daughter team. They make some Star Warsy thing out of bread and then put it on display.
Nice.
And
I like it.
the New York Times picked up this story, so you know it's legit.
Yeah.
But he's 6
Yeah.
feet tall, and it looks like Han and carbonite, but it looks like something you just wanna break off a piece, like, it looks like nice pretzely type of bread that you wanna break off a piece and eat.
I'm sure a few birds have already gotten to it, is my
Pro
guess.
probably.
It's turned into a nice seagull cracker.
Yeah.
Uh, yes. All right. Let's move on then. If that's
You
the
wanna move
last.
on?
Oh well. Okay. Maybe here's my transition. Andor. There's one. I guess one small piece of news that came out about Andor. Apparently, the viewership has been less than
Oh, right.
relatively less than other Star Wars
But relative to what? Other Star Wars, right?
other Star Wars, yes, other Star Wars, Disney Plus series specifically, and
Okay.
it's that's important context because I think like Boba Fett and Obi-Wan were kind of in the same group and getting a lot of views and stuff, but like we're talking about the iconic characters of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan, whose names are in the show title too. Um, Andor is just not as common, and so people probably don't always associate that with Star Wars. Um, so I think that's what a lot of people are saying. But here's the other thing I was thinking. I kind of like it. I like kind of knowing that I'm really into this, and I don't know, maybe people like I don't feel like I've heard as much like anger towards it, and maybe that's
Oh gosh,
why.
I haven't heard anything. That's a good point. And I sometimes wonder, it sounds horrible, but I sometimes wonder if people hate watch some Star Wars stuff.
Oh, I'm
Where
sure.
they watch it just to get themselves angry about like, how could you do this to my beloved characters or whatever the case
Right.
might be.
Right. Heard a lot of that with Boba Fett. Yeah.
Yeah, and nobody's doing this with Andor. I think everything I'm seeing with Andor, I haven't looked at Rotten Tomatoes or anything, but I think everything I'm seeing is wildly positive, and
Oh, it's
people are
so
just
positive.
over the moon about what they're getting, and just really excited and satisfied. And people just, I think every episode, people feel good about what they got.
8.1 on IMDb, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's phenomenal,
That's the
and
critic score.
it's gonna win stuff.
Yeah. It
And
deserves it.
and if there are a few less people watching, I don't know that matters as much, that it's like the commercial blockbuster of Star Wars TV shows, because I think it's going to be kind of one of the crown jewels of this era in terms of quality TV making and quality Star
Agreed.
Wars TV making.
Agreed. Yeah. Can't wait to be
I
talking in a few months from now about the awards it won, you know?
I hope when they put out the Blu-ray box set that they use that quote across the back of it. Wouldn't that be great?
From Ben.
Wait,
Yes.
but I
I'd
said
be
it.
all over you. Oh, wait. What quote? Well, I thought you said my quote. What quote?
I didn't say your quote. From Ben. That's what you would do. You would come in there and cross out my name.
I thought you were saying my quote. Never mind. I didn't know whose quote you were talking about.
No. Silly
From-
goose.
From Ben and Jan. No, just from
Yeah.
you. Okay, fine. I'll give it back to you.
This
How
is where
about-
they stop returning our calls. It's too much trouble. Let's just ask Chris Ryans for a quote.
How about we move on to the second segment?
Yeah. What's
Does
that
that
one
sound
called?
good? That's you. I don't know. You tell me.
I think that one's called More to the Story.
Dun, 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 dun.
And today we're talking about episodes what? 4 and 5?
and
No,
6.
5 and 6.
5 and 6.
I'm having trouble keeping track of the numbers, but the names are great. So we have
The Axe Forgets.
The Axe Forgets, and we have The Eye.
Yes.
And somebody told me that the week that The Eye came out, last week, the Rings of Power episode was also called The Eye. And I missed
Was
that.
there an episode called The Eye?
I don't know. Somebody told me that. I didn't fact check. I just said, "Hey, that's pretty cool, friend," and ran with it. So
I'm gonna fact check right now because I was watching that and keeping up on it, and I don't remember that. But I wasn't paying too much attention to him either. So
every party has a pooper.
And are you saying that I'm about to poop all over this party?
Wow.
Is that what you're saying?
Let's just talk about Andor. How about that?
You're the one who said the line. I don't know what you're talking about. All right, let's talk about Andor. So many moments to talk about in these 2 episodes, and it seemed to be following the same pattern that the first 3 episodes with. And if you thought that episodes 1 and 2 were really long, and thank goodness we got the third one with it, so that we could like cut to all the action and feel like we were gaining some momentum and going somewhere. That's basically how the last 2 weeks leading up to episode 6 felt. It was like, we're going to make it feel like 1, 2, and 3 should have felt. 4 was like we talked about in the last episode, it was just kind of building. 5 did even more building, and then 6 was our exclamation point. So yeah, right. But 5 had some really memorable moments and some really memorable scenes. Let's start, if you don't mind, with everything with Cyril and his mom.
That's the first thing that I've got on here. Yes.
So one of the opening shots is of Cyril just sitting there in his room. And I love the artistic way that they did this, where he's crying. It's not going well for him. And the light is coming in and fading out at the exact same time and shining in his eyes, like almost blinding him. And it felt like a metaphor kind of where he was in his life, where he's like literally looking for the light within himself. And it was going dark just as quickly as the light came out.
And it's like a very kind
beautiful.
of like buttoned up, controlled crying. He's not like slamming his fists against the wall. Like, it's just a little
deep.
bit, it's too much for him to contain. It's kind of just spilling over.
Yeah.
But he's trying to maintain that kind of like stiff composure.
Yes.
That I think he probably has cultivated for himself over time. Like this, I think, and when we meet his mother, we can see why he's sort of like buried in himself and kind of blocked off from the world. But that's a good point about getting blinded. I had not picked up on that.
By the way, it was
Mhm.
called The Eye.
See?
I didn't realize that one was called The Eye now. I'm just like, weird.
See,
I
some
don't see
random
it.
person on Twitter was
Smart
right.
kid. Yeah.
Yep.
This is a good episode too. Anyway, um, yeah, he's going through stuff, and mom is not helping, by the way.
Mo
She's trying to in her
she's
motherly way.
well, she's trying to make herself feel like she's helping. She's
Yes.
trying to help in a way that would serve her well and would make her feel better, but has not there's no conversation about like, how can I help you? What would make
No.
you feel better?
No,
Let's talk about how you're feeling.
she's rubbing it in his face that he's a failure,
Completely,
and,
completely.
like, how his only option was to come home.
Mhm,
Like, no wonder he left. Like, this is a terrible environment for him, and he's not putting up with it anymore. Like, I
mhm,
can just imagine what life was like as the kid in this scenario, probably just like, you know, getting beat over the head with this verbal abuse and just having to take it quietly. He's not taking it quietly anymore, but he's holding it together as much as he can.
mhm.
Gosh, I kept wondering as I watched this, um, who was Uncle Harlow, who was mentioned a few times? Is it somebody that we know, or is it someone that we have yet to be introduced to? What are their connections? Are they connected to the empire? Apparently, Uncle Harlow says he's not cut out for police work, which took away my theory of maybe he's in the ISB. I was like, oh, that kind of, I know it's not police work, but like it's still like law enforcement in a way, right?
Yeah.
Some kind of enforcement. So I don't know. I have no idea who it is or how it's going to connect to everything. But yeah, that. Any thoughts? Do you have any ideas or
He
speculation?
it would be hard to imagine us not meeting him or coming across him again in some way, but he sounds like somebody who's important. He sounds like somebody who has some stature in the world that matters to Cyril's mom.
Yeah,
So it seems like appearances are important to her. Um, Connections, being around, rubbing elbows with the right people, and maybe this guy, maybe Harlow's attained a certain status on
yeah,
Coruscant, where he's got a title, maybe some credits to his name, maybe some power and authority, and so in her mind, he's an example of success, and she's gonna use the phone a friend option and try to get a favor from him,
yeah.
and she seems to be pretty set on this being the path to him kind of fixing his current situation. And
Hmm.
I can't tell if it actually would fix his current situation or if she's like showing off to him a little bit and
Yeah.
saying, "Look,
Look, you
I'm
need me after all,
you
don't
do
you?
need me. You like I'm feeding you. I'm finding connections for you, and you thought that you were out there on your own, but you really do need my help here."
Yeah, yeah. We'll find out. I think it's just a lot of people watching this scene, this unhealthy relationship. Few people might have like personal flashbacks, but
Oh,
gosh, it
sure.
just it was painful to watch it because there's part of you that wants Cyril to end up being being a rebel or something. You kind of want to see him end up on the good side because you feel for like the situation that he's finding himself in. But there are definitely some people there's no love lost for. Like they're just like, nope, he did a terrible thing in going after Andor to begin with. Um, Point being, he's complicated, and complicated characters are they're just the best, right? They make for good storytelling.
I
Um,
I I think he's complicated. I think he is what some people call an anxious achiever, where
I like that.
he cannot rest. He feels unfulfilled unless he's achieving in some way where he wins the affection of certain people.
Yeah.
And usually those are more senior people. Usually those are people who are um, in positions of authority that he fears or respects, which is why I think a lot of people are kind of like rubbing their hands together, thinking like, "All right, here we go. This is the beginning of his arc, and he becomes a rebel." I think he goes hardcore Empire in some other way. I'm not sure
Mm,
what that looks like yet, but I think his anxious achiever personality type will serve him well in a super bureaucratic, like structured place like the Empire.
Yeah.
And maybe one of these agencies, or who knows exactly like what part of it, but that's kind of what I see.
I like it.
And
I could see that.
and it's not his mom. He's not trying to impress her, although maybe on some level he's looking for somebody to care about him and love him in
No,
some way.
I don't think he's trying to impress her, but the whole like desire to impress comes
Yeah.
from not being able to impress her in his
Yes.
youth. And
Exactly.
so
So he's
he's
gonna make
not
up
trying to
for it now.
he's gonna make for it now. He's gonna prove it to himself. He's only trying to like live up to this bar, this super high bar that she set for him, and and resents her for it a bit, but like still can't stop aiming for the bar, you know?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
it's just catch 22 that he finds himself in. It's really
Yeah.
tough. Let's talk about, Skeen and
Mm.
Cassian now, like, and maybe just kind of the whole montages with Cassian back on in the camp or in the group that's preparing for this big mission, this heist.
The
Um,
heist.
it's one of the first shots that we see is Skeen has stolen his bag, gone through everything in it. He's trying to get to know every detail he can on this guy because he just doesn't trust people. And as he later on explains. But I mean, it just it sets this relationship with him like really on edge at the beginning, you know? Um and and you
But
kind
like
of
why
see it
like
throughout the rest of the episode and then into the next one, you know?
but I kept thinking to myself, that does kind of put that relationship on edge, but why should they trust him? Why should they?
I don't think they should. I think it's just you're right. Like, why should they? They probably shouldn't. They don't know this guy. And he's coming in using a fake name and everything. Like,
And
there's a
they're
lot of
gonna
reason
they're
not to
gonna
trust him.
they're gonna put their lives in his hands, and they're gonna
Yeah.
be in a dangerous situation, and so um, they're probably looking for any shred of evidence that, hey, we can trust this guy. That's the kind of way that I was looking at it early on, which after the fact, we know that there's some other motives there, but in the moment, it's kind of like, yeah, why would this be like a warm, welcoming situation with, trust first and then verify later? Like it was,
But Skeen, there's got to be a line that I mean, I don't know if he's crossed it at the beginning because I'm not so convinced that Vel told him to actually look through the bag. Like, I think he was just using that
oh,
as a
I,
reason to keep you looking to look through it. You
yeah,
know, he's
I
just
agree.
passing that off.
Yeah.
Um, but because then later on he's coming and stealing his bag, he's still trying to look for stuff like that, and then he rolls a knife to his neck at the very end just to be able to find what he's looking for. Which like I get why he doesn't trust him, but like come on, at some point, just have a conversation with the guy. I mean, I
Yeah.
know casting is like he's even said, like, it's not easy working with other people. I get it. He doesn't
Hmm.
trust very easily either. But you got to change your tactics, man. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair point. But I guess also the time was running out, and you wanted to get to the bottom of it quickly before the
True.
whole heist went down.
True.
And so maybe it was a little bit limited, but uh, I think it's interesting that Skeen is ultimately the one who gets Clem, in air quotes,
Hmm.
or Cassian, to fess up and
That's true.
to say where he's actually coming from. Um,
There's a
and
part of me that kept going, like, this is a friendship that is starting just on a wrong foot and it's eventually going to find its way. And you saw kind of inklings
oh
of that going into the next
yeah,
episode. At one point, they're walking together down to the barracks, to the fortress, right? And they're talking about Terramin and his background as a stormtrooper and everything, and you can kind of see like breaking down walls, like getting a little bit of trust there, like almost kind of becoming buddies. It was like they were making this great progress together. And I
mm,
think it's because Skeen was like, I think I'm starting to figure you out, and I think you're just like me, and I respect that. So I
hmm
think from a Skeen's perspective, that's why he was getting more comfortable in this relationship. But
got
we'll
it.
get to where it goes by the end. But I don't know. I think they did a lot of work developing this dynamic with Skeen, and eventually, this is one of the reasons why the pace is so good.
Yeah.
Because if you rush through those stuff, when the big moments happen, and again, we're alluding to it, like we'll get there. when the big moment happens near the end, it matters more because of all the work they did to prepare for it, to show you, Skeen, his tactics, the interactions with Andor, so that you had all that to think about by the end.
And same thing. One of the things that I've been thinking about with these last couple of episodes is the setting too. I think the having them just be in the woods in this encampment that
Mhm.
looks a little bit removed from civilization. I think it makes the characters pop a little bit more and their interactions pop a little bit more than if they were like in a busy spaceport or something,
Yeah,
under assumed names with like a lot of buzzing and action and noise like the fact that they picked a real setting and just sort of put them in the woods together on the hillside somewhere and let these characters play off of each other makes it really easy to kind of focus on the dynamics between the people, I think. It makes it really
yeah,
easy for the tensions between the characters to really pop out even more than, again, if they were back on Coruscant or some other place where there was visual distractions in the background and stuff like that. And it was a really pretty place, but it made it really easy to focus on them. And I think to some extent that was deliberate.
I mean, I kept thinking too, like they're here in the middle of the woods. Nobody trusts each other. At one point, it's had to go through somebody's mind, like, you know what? If I just decide I'm done with these people, like I could end it all right now. And there's no police around. Like they could
Yeah.
have, in a very dark place, and none of them seem to be like in the greatest of moods or mental states. So like it was. That sounds very morbid now that I say that. I'm like,
Yeah.
gosh, but like
No.
they were just not. None of them were. They've been through so much. Like they talked about Cinta's backstory and like
Mm,
the fact that she had lost all of her family and it was to stormtroopers, and then you got Terram there who's a former stormtrooper. Like there are
yeah.
tensions even between this group and this band. So like
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me if they just was like, I'm done. I can't do it with you guys. And bring in this guy in last second who we don't know, who we don't trust. We don't know why he's here. Like they're on thin ice. And the thing that I think that helps at the end of the day, oddly enough, is Cassian ends up being the guy that brings them together. So after the knife is pulled on him, um, he decides, I'm going to fess up. I'm done with this hiding who I am, why I'm here. And even if it's not admirable, I'm going to fess up to it and let everybody know I'm here. I'm being paid. And he gets into this whole monologue about fear and how there's a difference between being afraid and losing your nerve. And
Mm,
don't let their fear of the mission um, you know, come because they're afraid of him being there or anything like that. Like he says in a much more eloquent way than that. But he was basically calling everybody out, to saying like, don't blame me if you're afraid to do this mission, because I don't want. I want to walk away from this. I want to survive. So if you don't want to do this, get out now, because then I'll know where I should go. But otherwise, I'm doing this mission.
I think that was a big trust building moment. And I think that was also a moment where maybe the group realized, and I think this was particularly true after watching the heist, of they needed everybody they could get to pull that off.
Yeah,
They, even if they half trusted Cassian after him coming clean and admitting to the reason that he was there, they still needed him.
to
And
finish the
maybe
job.
they couldn't really finish the job with, giving up a man or losing multiple people or something. So I think that honesty was enough for them to kind of hang their hats on and say, all right, fair enough. And then as soon as there's a little bit of trust, I think the group pulls together. And I think thanks to that moment, the heist ultimately is successful. But had it not been for that, then who knows what would have happened? The
Yeah,
whole rebellion story might have looked a little bit different.
looked a little bit different. Maybe because this, I think, is being portrayed as like their big break,
Yeah,
right? They're leading the mission that will either start the rebellion or not.
yeah,
And 80 million credits sounds like it could go a long way to starting the rebellion, right?
yeah.
Okay, and it's cool because like everybody, I've always wondered, like, where are they getting their money from? Oh, this is one way that they got it. And
Hmm.
maybe just doing that, it's like it sends a signal to everywhere else who also might have some money and want to join the cause to come in. Like, okay, they're able to pull something like this off. All right, I'm willing to try joining these crazy lunatics. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah. Where else in this episode do you want to go?
You know, one of the things that I wanted to mention is I liked what they did with Luthen in this part of the arc where he's back on Coruscant and he's the whatever you call him, the antiquities dealer.
Yeah.
Um, and I liked how he's removed from things now, and he's kind of like getting secondhand or indirect reports, or he's sort of reading into the silence of I'm not hearing anything. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Um, and I I feel like between episodes 5 and 6, it's almost like Luthen becomes part of the audience with us. And it's
Mm.
almost like he is one of the audience members, just like we are,
Yeah.
watching this whole thing unfold,
Yeah.
and riding like this emotional roller coaster. And I don't know, I just thought that was like a really nice way to kind of contrast a ton of that action with what the audience was going through by having somebody who kind of seemed like he was part of the audience on screen
Yeah.
for part of that. So really like that. Anything we want to talk about with Nemec in episode 5
Hmm.
leading up to 6? Because
Nemec is an interesting character, and I had to go and
dare
rewatch
I
this.
say controversial?
I mean, I think a lot of them are controversial. A lot of the characters, Skeen is controversial, Nemec's controversial. Yeah, I mean, as soon as you say the word manifesto, people are like, "Yeah, what's going on, man?" And so like that's where I turned the captions on to see like what is it that he's saying.
Hmm.
And there were a few moments you're like, "Oh, that's a little far." Where he was saying like basically we ought to take tactics like the Empire does, um, but but yeah, a little bit more, a little dark in a few areas, but in some ways not wrong too. Like,
In some ways, and I think it depends on.
your point of
Uh,
view, don't say it. Don't say it.
no, I think it depends on how seriously you take that stuff, which I guess is a point of view
Yes.
thing. Um,
Yes.
I think a lot of the stuff that he says or Saw Gerrera says, I think it kind of points in a direction and it's aspirational. And I think
Well, yeah,
if
because he's using words like freedom and
yeah,
justice and things, and you hear those words and you're like, "That's all
sounds
good
great.
stuff."
Yeah, sign
Right?
me up.
Right.
But like the do or die 100% this way or the highway is where it starts to get a little bit sketchy and dangerous.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah,
but
you gotta be careful with that, and that's, it's one thing to have this belief that motivates you, and for him, that like, that's working, that's why he's there, right? And there was a line, oh, who said it? Vel said it. Everybody has their own rebellion. They were talking about,
mm,
Lieutenant Gorn's story,
love
and
that.
how he lost a promotion, lost, and then eventually lost the woman that he loved, and then lost his taste for the empire. And that was her quote: "Was everyone has their own rebellion."
Mm.
Um, they're all there for different reasons. It's an awesome quote, but like, I guess I was thinking afterwards, like, what's my own rebellion? I think, and maybe that's a weird way to put it, but think about like if everyone could make this world a little bit better in one way, what way would that be? And that's kind of your own rebellion.
And what do you have to fight against to get there?
What do you have to fight against to get there? I mean, there's people who, I mean, all you have to do is talk to a civil rights activist, and they'll tell you, like,
Yeah.
I'm fighting for a better world, right?
Systems of oppression are in place and I'm going to fight them. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think to a different degree, everybody's got some version of, fighting the bad thing to speak truth to power or whatever.
right.
Um, here's another Nemec observation that I had from the next episode. Do you think it's a symbolic thing that Nemec is killed by getting smashed with the
All
cart
that
full of
money.
money? Yeah.
Um,
Is there something to that?
I didn't look into that much. Or what are you? You think it's symbolic?
I don't know. I don't know what's in that manifesto. I haven't read it. Um, but I wonder if it says something about greed and about the pursuit of greed at the expense of others and so on.
See, that's where I
And
thought you were going. Like, was it because he was greedy? I'm like, well, he's not the
no,
greedy
no,
type,
no.
unless that would be a cruel irony then.
No,
um,
I think it was the empire's greed, like become manifest. Like it's their money, their ill-gotten gains,
hmm.
and he's speaking out against it probably in his manifesto. Um, and he's literally crushed by imperial money, And I don't know. I thought that there might be some symbolism there,
Hmm.
and maybe you listeners and watchers have an opinion on that. I'd be curious to hear if you do. But I think that there was something to that he was so um, overwhelmed by all the weight of that ill-gotten money dumping on him that not even Dr. Quadpaw could save him. That's his name, by the way.
Is that what his name was? I was just like, wow, wait, who was
Yeah,
Dr. Quadpa? Oh, and then I thought Quad, the guy at the end. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. I got to think about that more. I don't see it only because like I feel like
It's
the
a
cruel irony,
stretch.
it might be like, but maybe there's something there. And plus it's like it would be terrible for him to go that way, to be like go the way that he basically said that the whole world is running right now. But I got to think about that.
But
Um,
and maybe there's some solidarity in it, right? Like how many people have been unjustly killed for the empire to stockpile all that money and to steal it from others. And he, the manifesto writer, is also unjustly killed, literally by that pile of money.
yeah. I guess all I thought too was like you, you guys couldn't have like taken a
Put the
seat real
brake on the
quick, or
cart.
like put your backs against a wall or something else. Like you had to like
Like
see if you
I've
could
been
hold
to
onto a rail.
I've been to Home Depot. You can usually put a brake on those carts. But maybe they're
Well, that
different.
too. I was thinking more just like when he took off like that, you knew it was going to be going fast. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, we're getting ahead to the next episode. The one other thing that I wanted to say with the Axe for Guys. Well, first of all, the line, like the line that
Beautiful line.
inspires it. It's the tree remembers, the axe forgets, but the tree remembers. Like I bet we could all think about times where we were wronged, and most likely that person has moved on and we haven't. And the hard part
Yeah.
is
Or they
to
never even knew. They just it didn't even register for them.
right. Yeah, maybe. That's true. I thought of the line in Guardians of the Galaxy where oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name. The bad guy uh was there with Drax, and he's like he doesn't even remember his family,
Sauron.
right? No, not Sauron. You're going to make me want to remember
Thanos.
now. Stop. You were doing this on purpose.
It's one of those.
Tangents. It's
Isn't it
not
one of
one of
those?
those. No,
Hmm.
it's my wife's gonna scream at me from the other room.
Voldemort.
That's right. So Drax tells Voldemort, "You killed my family," and he goes, "I don't remember them." Stop it.
That
Stop
that
just staring at me. But that
that's a great line though.
his point
It's
that like
so cold.
he doesn't remember the most traumatic
He's the
experience that he
axe.
caused for Drax's life. I'm
Mm,
gonna remember it, and it's gonna come to me, and I'll just be in the middle of the episode blurt it
icy
out.
cold. All right. Well, yeah, just shout it out.
Point being, there was another parallel to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so anyway,
Ouch.
that was a great line, and then the Mon Mothma household is not
Oh,
doing well right now.
no.
That scene with the daughter and the fact that it was one thing with like her husband, Perrin, like, but her too.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
that
mean,
kind of pained me because
Cyril didn't want to go home. Mon Mothma probably doesn't want to go home at the end of the workday.
yeah, Lita was her name, the daughter's name. Yeah, she just they have a really heated conversation. Like definitely a teenager, but the fact that like dad was kind of in on it, like
Hmm.
everyone's ganging up on her.
Yeah.
I just really feel for her right now. I don't know where this is going, but I don't feel like this will get resolved in a good way. I feel like it's her her rebellion is going to be she sacrificed her family and like not she had to walk away from her family and that
Yeah.
life to pursue the rebellion, and that's going to be rough to see
Yeah.
if that's what happens.
I could totally see that happening.
Anyway, should we move on to the last episode?
Yeah.
What was that one called?
The eye.
Oh yeah, we already said that.
We did give that away, but so we mentioned on when we were on Pudu, was it last night?
Yep.
Wow. Um, there are multiple arcs, and Tony Gilroy came out and said, this is a show that has a number of different arcs. We're going to have the establishing arc, episodes 1 through 3.
Ronan, I told you I would do it.
The next arc will be 4, 5, 6.
Just
This is
moving
the
on.
heist that we're watching. The next episode, believe it or not, is not an arc. Tony Gilroy has been saying since the beginning that episode 7 is going to be a standalone episode. And so we're going to shift
Yes.
gears a little bit. I'm not sure in what direction, but things are going to potentially change in terms of who we're seeing on screen the whole time and so on. Then we go back to another
I'm just
8 9
laughing at the fact that I didn't get a single laugh out of you. You just stared stone cold back at me when I said Ronan. You're like, You're the tangent now, Ben."
8 9 10 is a different arc, and then 11 and 12 is the finale. Sorry, were you going to say something?
Ronan the Accuser.
Uh-huh.
Okay, fine. You just never mind.
Dude, I'm sorry. I'm just messing with you.
Just so funny. I
Um,
love it. It's when the tables turn, and I'm the
how the
one giving
turntables.
how the turntables. When I'm the one throwing the tangents out there, it's fun.
It is fun,
No,
isn't it?
it is kind of fun.
It's fun to derail.
Keep going. Get us back on the rails.
Okay.
That's the job of the person who does not throw the tangent out there.
Yeah. So we're episode 6, The Eye, is the conclusion of the second main arc of the
Yes.
series. And since we know, we were told that this is going to be the conclusion of the arc, I think this wraps up in some meaningful way. Meaning, like, maybe we move away from some of the characters that we saw in 4, 5, 6. Maybe we just follow Cassian on his own. Not sure. But there's a lot in this episode. There is
Yes.
a huge, all this buildup does lead to some really satisfying action, beautiful visual effects. So this whole eye thing is spectacular. Parallels to Rogue One. To think of one, there is Nemec yelling at Cassian, who's flying, telling him to climb. And there's a K2SO moment that is pretty similar to that.
He's telling him to climb up the data tower, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very similar.
You pointed that out to me. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm sure pretty deliberate. But let's touch on a couple of things that are happening in this episode. So there's this whole political undertone of the occupiers, the Empire, occupying Aldhani, this planet, the Dani people, and they've been there for long enough where it's like a little bit of a slow boil, and they've kind of convinced them in some ways that they're not an immediate threat, but meanwhile the Empire is an immediate threat to the Dani people. Couple things here. I went back and I was reading a little bit more about this, and they're doing some type of I guess some type of ritual where they're exchanging goat hides.
Yeah.
And the Dani people are giving a goat hide to the Empire to pay the lease for their land. And it's symbolic, but it is, I think, a really good example of the trickery that the Empire is pulling to make them feel like in some ways they are adopting Donnie culture when in reality, like, they're oppressing these poor people.
Yeah.
And not only are they oppressing them, but we talked about this on Pudu a little bit last night. The Empire is just inviting trouble by their own presence, by keeping heaps of money there and so on. And these Donnie people, this is not the life that they signed up for.
Yeah.
But so episode 6, the conclusion of this arc. In episode 4, there is a really cool line from Luthen where he says to Cassian, this is an opportunity to really put a stick in the eye of the Empire.
Ooh, yeah, I know you're right.
And here's the eye, right?
Here it is, and you're going to literally fly right through it. You are the stick.
You are the stick. Yeah.
Good parallel there.
So he served that up, and he gets to have that experience.
I watched this and thought of a few things. First of all, a lot of the build up, yes, definitely cheesesteaks. A lot of the build up to the trick with tangents, by the way, acknowledge them and quickly move on. Did you see how I did that? And then I, shot myself in the foot by going back and explaining my trick, and now you're going to find some way to overcome it.
Perhaps.
No. So some of the things that I really liked about this is as they were kind of building up until the moment basically that Vel says go,
Mm-hmm.
there is little to no music. And music is critical in these types of
That's a
shows.
great point. Huh.
There's nothing to tell you how to feel about everything that you're seeing, which is tough. Like the whole entire reason we watch this is to feel, to be honest. And if the music isn't giving you any cues, you don't know what to think. It isn't until she's like getting ready to say go that I heard the first note of music in the for a while at least. Like there might have been some at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Um so I think that's really important because it's telling you
Wow.
to kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
And and not just giving it away right, right off the bat. So that one was interesting. The other
Can
thing I
can I
really
can I
liked
comment
was
on that real quick?
no. Yeah, go ahead.
It's not about cheesesteaks or anything like that. Um, Years ago, I saw an interview with a director called David Lynch, who I love, but he's obviously completely mad as a hatter, as some people say. But I think he's a creative genius. I really do. And David Lynch was answering questions from the audience about one of the movies that he had made. And if you've ever seen any of his movies, they're not straightforward. They can
Mm,
be confusing. The dialogue doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Um, the plot kind of goes off in different directions, and you're not really sure what you watched. But they're all beautiful, and the performances are amazing, and you get a certain feeling and all that stuff. And
yeah.
so, a woman in the audience asked him a question. I think, like a really practical question about, what's this about? This part of this movie, loved it, was quite a ride, but like, what's it really about? And he gave a long-winded answer that um, basically summed up as, and you don't need me to tell you. And
Mm,
your experience of watching that movie, like what you felt was completely valid, and that's what that movie's about.
mm,
And I'm not gonna I'm not gonna package it up and tell you that you should feel a certain way or experience it a certain way or it meant this and maybe you saw that, maybe you didn't. Is
yeah.
that on some level what it's about. Um, and I just thought that was like such a mature, respectful way to talk to an audience member who was just trying to enjoy your movie. And now that I think about it, like not having music in those moments is kind of a way to say to the audience, like, like
You can figure it out.
you're having a valid experience watching
Yeah.
this.
There's no danger just yet. And also it builds tension in its own way. Like
Yeah,
sometimes you need music
totally.
to do that. Sometimes no music is just enough to do that. Like think about
Think of
horror films. When it gets silent, that's when you get scared the most.
or think about long silences and conversations with people you don't really know well. Horrifying.
Absolutely. Was that horrifying? Stop doing it. Okay, I'm moving on. Um, I want to talk about Lieutenant Gorn for a second here, who
Go
I
on.
liked in most of these other episodes too, because he's very Empire. Like he's definitely been trained by the Empire. He's stoic. He's kind of strong willed and will tell you exactly what he thinks. But he's also browbeaten. Like we see the exchange that he has with his commanding officer at one point.
Mhm.
It's not a good one. Um, but the one thing that I really like is anytime they talked about they talked about the people, the Aldhani, and is that how it's pronounced? Aldhani?
The people are the Donnie, and the
The
planet
Donnie.
is Aldani.
Aldani. Okay, thank you. Whenever he talks about them, like the part where they talk about like the eye and he says, well, the Aldani believe the Donnie believe that that basically that it never closes, that it never ends. So it's not that it's
Mm,
beginning, like it's just continuing.
mhm.
Um It just kinda shows how much he's gotten to know even, like, when he speaks their language, like, he's gotten to know these people a lot over 7 years, and he spent time to get to know them intimately, so as much as he's part of the Empire, he's done something the Empire never did, which is care about anybody or anything any place that
Good
they've
point.
ever occupied.
Yeah.
Uh, he goes against that grain, and that's one of the reasons why he's a rebel in this moment, and it's so well done, I loved it. So that was just really good, like, character development for Gorn specifically, to show kind of how he's Empire but not Empire at the same time.
Yeah.
So I had to call that out. Um, but let's talk about the whole heist for a second. I mean, the action was phenomenal. The the tension was there. Um, I had a hard time in a few moments figuring out, who do I root for right now? Like, I'm obviously rooting for Cassian and the team, but they did not make it easy, right? They came in there and they kidnapped a mom and her son
That's
and
not a
held them
rebel thing.
hostage,
Like, growing up and then, like, watching the original trilogy and then
right?
the prequels, I don't remember the good guys taking a lot of children hostage. Um,
No.
and so, yeah, it complicates things a little bit. Like,
That's a good way
obviously,
to put it.
I
And
want
leaving Cinta in charge too, who is the
yeah,
coldest of them all. A
yeah.
lot of people are speculating that she just took them all out by the end.
I've seen that.
I
Could be the case. I don't know.
I
Well,
don't know. I mean,
maybe
they
we'll find
promised that
out.
if they live through this, that everything will be fine. So I don't know.
Yeah. So it got rough very quickly, and it was complicating in the sense, like, I'm not feeling a whole lot of sympathy for the empire that's occupying this planet and occupying people who they have no
Oh
right
yeah.
to. Um, but then
Like
when
they
you see the commander being mean to his wife and his kid, and then
yes.
they get taken hostage, like, they don't want to be there. They're already kind of getting verbally beat up by this guy, and now, like, he's got to play ball, or they're in real trouble. Like, yeah, it's kind of, it was tough to watch.
And somebody mentioned, like, oh, they're innocent bystanders and everything, and I'm just like, but do there have to be? I mean, this is the hard part about it. Like, a rebellion is messy, right? And and so as you understood it a little bit, it was still tough to a tough pill to swallow, you
And
know?
not to mention, they're desperate too, because I looked it up and it said that it was a 40-person garrison who's normally stationed there, plus they had some reinforcements and some backup, so there's extra people, and there's half a dozen of these rebels on base. Like,
Mhm.
they need whatever advantages they can get, and to pull off this heist, they're gonna have to do some stuff that is morally questionable at best, and I think that
Right.
that's where this lands. Frankly, it's probably immoral,
Oh,
but
yeah. But then again, like, they had to get the job done. I understood it, but, like, and this is where it kinda gets dicey with, like, Nemec and everything. Like, that was he was kinda making the point, like, you gotta fight those tactics with the same tactics.
the same
Um,
Nemec who Andor said to him, "You'll be fine. You'll sleep when we're done." I know, it's
yeah.
like, oh, he's gonna die.
So yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know where else to go. I mean, other than just, like, great action, great sequence, just perfectly executed. The tension was there. I felt like I feel like we just kinda had to skip to some of the big moments that happened after the action kinda settled down, and you
Yeah.
mentioned one of them. Like, Lieutenant Gorn went down,
Hmm.
um, Terriman went down, and then eventually, Nemec, like you have already mentioned, like, got crushed by the money. Um, and so, like, they're kind of just falling left and right, and that's just, before they even get out of there.
True.
um,
Yeah.
so that was rough. Like, half the team is now gone, and you're left with Vel, Skeen, and Cinta is still there on the planet. And so hopefully she's okay. I don't think we're done seeing her. I think we'll see
I
her
don't think so
again.
either. I don't think so
And
either.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't think it's gonna be good. I think she's gonna
Well,
get caught somehow, and that's not gonna end
okay.
well.
Okay.
So, and we'll get to why I think that in a second. But half the team is now gone, and then let's skip forward now to Vel is in the tent with
Hmm.
Nemec. Skeen is sitting outside with Cassian. This moment was one of the highest stake, like, scariest kind of, but I mean, I have been thinking about this moment for days since watching this. It has stuck with me. It resonated. Like that to me is a sign of a good story, right? What was your reaction in this scene with Skeen and all the stuff he's saying to Cassian?
Um, so I had an immediate reaction, and then I had some time to reflect and read up on it a little bit, and my reactions changed a bit. Or I've added to my
Interesting.
I've added to my immediate reaction. Um, that it reminded me a little bit of Breaking Bad, which I don't think you watched, but
No,
my
my
wife
wife
and
did.
I. What's that?
My wife did.
Oh yeah. So there's some like pretty stone cold moments in that where the protagonist would just takes people out,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of back and forth. There's not a lot of, you know what, I should have never trusted you, and the other person saying, no, wait, I can explain, and then
Mhm.
there being a big long conversation that ends with like, the other guy draws his gun, and like it wasn't drawn out, and so therefore it felt to me like very stone cold, like a couple of other moments we've seen with Andor.
Mhm.
um when we first met him on the big screen in Rogue One, when he shoots that guy, and then again in the
Mhm.
beginning of this series when he shoots the other guy. So it felt very kind of stone cold to me. But one of the things that I went back and thought about was the fact that Skeen, he had made up this whole story about his brother.
Did
And
he make it up or did he just say like, "No, I've kinda gotten to the point where I just accept that I don't have one." I don't know.
I took it as some part of that was fabricated for him to fit in with the rest of the crew. And
Mm.
he kind of poured his heart out about this made up sibling of his. And I think that triggered something for Andor, who is actually looking for his sister, who has
Yeah,
actually lost a sibling that he cares about. And
that's true, yeah.
I think that really stung him to hear, oh, this was all made up, and now you want to steal this stuff, and now I know I can't trust you. Like I think that all kind of compounded. But I think the thing about his sibling and how much that stung personally for Andor, I think that set him off in a way that maybe it wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, it's, there's so much to process here, but it was funny because like, as soon as he says the line, like, "How much do you reckon is in that ship?" Um, the tense music starts because you know
Hmm.
where this is going. And it's not going in a great direction. So I guess my question for you is do you think that Cassian shoots him if uh if he doesn't say that he made up that story?
I don't think so.
I disagree,
Okay.
and this is why. But I wonder that now. So like I'm disagreeing now. I could change my mind. We can do this. Like this is how
Hmm.
much I've been thinking about this for days. I disagree because the way I thought about it was all right. I'm processing this as Andor's processing it, right? And Chris is back there fiddling with the stuff. Look at that.
It's cool. I like that.
I do. Uh, but I was noticing that uh like as soon as he kind of said like we can just split it, and he was like, you don't care about the rebellion. He's like, meh. He's like, you don't. What about the kid? And he's just kind of like, meh. I figured at that moment that's when he goes. He's telling me that 80 million, he's fine with just 40. What's to stop him from killing him once they get to that moon for the other 40?
Yeah.
And I figured like at that moment, he's like, I don't think this is the type of guy I can trust. At the same time, I can't be like, no man, I'm good because he knows that all I'll do is go and tell Vel and you know,
He didn't
it's
have a
not gonna
lot of
end well.
options there.
He had no options. And so he's processing this all and just realizing all the outcomes and was like, "You know what? The only option I have right now is to kill him."
Yeah.
And since like that's not beneath me, apparently, Cassian, it's not beneath him. He just did it. I can understand why he did it. Doesn't mean it's right.
Doesn't
I
mean it's
just don't
right.
understand how he got there.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But hey, in the last few minutes that we've got here, a couple other things to mention very quickly. One, the manifesto.
Mhm.
So Nemec doesn't make it. and the manifesto is handed over to Andor. And my question is, does that get out into the galaxy? And I wonder if we get different bits and pieces of that in, I don't know, Rogue One, the original trilogy, and beyond, that will now be able to attribute back to Nemec's manifesto.
Maybe.
Sayings, slogans, ideas. I don't know. We'll see. Because if it's in Andor's hands, one of two things happens. One, maybe it gets destroyed, and maybe that's why there isn't a whole lot of talk about Nemec's manifesto in the other Star Wars movies and so on. Or maybe he reads it. Maybe something falls into place for him, and maybe he doesn't become a radical, but maybe he adopts some of the themes, some of the ideas.
Yeah, I can see that.
The other thing is, I love the moment where you see Luthen get the news
That
that,
it's
yeah,
yeah, he has, again, like you said, like he has the audience's reaction, like relief, it worked. But the interesting thing is, like, I don't know if Luthen fully, we know that he doesn't fully appreciate or understand how it happened.
oh,
Not
right,
just
right.
who's lost, but the fact that Cassian isn't coming back with Vel, and that, yeah, most of the team is lost. He won't understand what happened with Skeen. Like, there's a ton of stuff that, like, he's gonna uncover and be like, wait, what happened? It's like the how is gonna be interesting.
Mm.
So I like that moment too, but I think one of my other favorite moments at the end here was, um there was a really quick scene with the ISB all coming together, and they
Oh, yeah,
used
yeah.
a term which should have us all shaking in our boots right
What was
now.
that?
Planetary Emergency Retaliation Plan.
That sounds horrible.
He told everyone to go and get their planetary emergency retaliation plans, everything that they have.
Ay, ay, ay.
Retaliation. They are coming back fighting after
Yeah.
this. That is how the Empire rolls. You smack them, they smack you right back.
Yep.
They're not going to just sit and let 80 million of credits, float away from them and do nothing about it. So
Yeah.
my suspicion is that they go either back to Aldani. Maybe they go there first and then to Ferrix, but somehow it's going to come back to Bruce for all of them, and Cassian
Mm.
can't get away from this as quickly as he thought he could.
Ay, ay. That makes sense.
So, lots to sit on the next few days.
Yeah, totally. But I read this online, and this might be a good note for us to end on. Amazing action, so much tension and build up. A lot of it gets resolved, but a lot of it's still hanging out there at the end of the episode. But love the moment with Luthen where he's cracking up and he's so excited and he knows that something went down. And somebody online pointed out that if you watch this with the subtitles on, then the last couple of things of the episode are Luthen. It says sigh, exhale, and then the credits start.
Yes, I saw the exhale. Yes.
And that's kind of how I feel like the end of this arc felt for a lot of people. I think we were all
Yes.
just kind of like,
Wow.
okay.
That is a lot to process right now.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
So
like,
can't wait for episode 7 this week.
can't wait. I mean, it's making me more excited for where the rest of the series goes. I mean,
Yeah.
this is by far one of the best series in Star Wars so far. I mean, and that says a lot. Like, Mandalorian's been great, and Obi-Wan was fantastic, but, like, this is a whole nother level of storytelling, and just the quality of the storytelling is fantastic. So I'm not one to rank and say this is better than that, but I'm just really appreciative of what Tony Gilroy is giving us in these first few episodes, and can't wait to see more of it.
Yeah, and you mentioning the other ones makes me kind of zoom out a little bit and go, wow, what a cool variety of different things we've got.
Variety, yeah, that's the point. Like, that's why you don't rank them, because they're just different.
They're different, yeah. But I'm really enjoying this one now, and we're going to continue to enjoy talking about it for the next few weeks, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks to talk about episode 7, which is going to be a standalone episode of some kind, and then episode 8, which is going to be the beginning, according to Mr. Gilroy, of a new arc. And
Yeah.
can't wait to see where that goes. I'm hoping we see some more Cyril, what happens with his story. I think we're going to see more within the Empire, all the different machinery moving, coming after the rebellion. And who knows what else we shall
There's
see.
definitely a lot more to this story, isn't there?
Oh,
I had to do it.
nicely done. Nicely done. So
We'll also be able to talk about Tales of the Last or Tales of the Last Jedi, Tales of the Jedi next time.
we will be
Since
talking
that
about The
comes
Last Jedi and some of our tales from it at the end of this year for
at
the
the
5-year
end.
anniversary.
No, but next Wednesday is the 26th, so we'll have that to talk about next time a bit
That's
too. So,
true. That's
um,
true.
lots to talk about. Stay tuned. As always, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for listening. It was great to meet some of you at New York Comic Con. We, hope you enjoy the stickers that we are able to get out. And if you're new, maybe you found us there, or maybe you found us since. Welcome and thank you for being here. Take a
Thank
listen
you.
to all of our other episodes where we have a lot more jokes and attempts at humor and all this stuff, and great insights on Star
Attempts at
Wars.
humor.
My attempts at humor. That's my attempts.
We're doing our best.
But thank you for
Yes.
being here. Where can everybody find us? You do this really well, Jan. I'll let you take it away.
We're here on the YouTubes, on the BROAXIUM YouTube channel, where we both have episodes of our podcast, but you and I also do quick shots, which are previews, spoiler-free previews of Star Wars comic books that are coming out in a given week, usually about a minute long, and drop the same day that the comic book comes out. We are on whatever platform you want to listen to your podcasts on, whether it's Apple Podcast or you like Spotify. We're on all the major ones. And then if you want to interact with us on our socials, you can find us at Starbros Podcast on Twitter. We are on Facebook. We are the Starbros Podcast. And if you just want to send us an email and talk about a particular topic, whether it's, hey, you guys should cover this next episode, or hey, I have a question about something you guys talked about last episode, or whatever it might be, the Starbros Podcast at gmail.com. Send us a message. We'd love to chat with you.
Love to. Yes, love to meet new people. We've been meeting a lot of people left and right because
We're
of
terribly
Comic-Con and
lonely.
Twitter. We're so lonely. So lonely. Yep. No, we're not. We're both happily married. What are you talking about? Anyway, that's a good note to end on. No, it's not. We're just gonna have to do it anyway, though.
That's just where we're gonna stop.
It's like I said, attempts at humor.
Yes. But again, thank you everybody for listening. It means a lot to us. It genuinely does.
Yes. How about you send us home? What do we say at the end?
It's a wrap.
Yeah. You didn't wake your in-lips up this time, right?
No, they're not here anymore.
Okay, good.
Bye, everybody.